You can mine all the gold you want on this planet. So no matter how much gold you have on your balance sheet, somebody's going to keep mining it. If they want to start moving to holding their reserve assets in Bitcoin, there's nothing the US can do to stop them transacting. There's nothing the US can do to confiscate it. I think it's very important for people to realize that Bitcoin is not a fly-by-night thing. It's held by millions of people. Its market cap is in the trillions of dollars. The Bitcoin ETFs are proof. It's the fastest and most successful ETF launch ever. 50 million voters have a perspective on Bitcoin that's positive. That is a large voting bloc. There are 6 states that determine the election in this country. You got to do what you can to get voters, and it is an issue. Show me any asset that has performed this well over the past 10 years. You can mine all the gold you want on this planet. So no matter how much gold you have on your balance sheet, somebody's going to keep mining it. You can't control that market. The foreign nations who have essentially been banned from the dollar environment because of sanctions are looking for a vehicle to transact and do business that is outside of the control of the US dollar and the US government. Bitcoin is one of those.
Fred Thiel, the CEO of Marathon Digital Holdings, painted a compelling vision for Bitcoin's future. As a store of value, he argued that a global shift is underway, with nations like those in the BRICS bloc, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, leading the charge to diversify away from the US dollar. This growing appetite for alternative reserve currencies, Thiel contended, aligns perfectly with Bitcoin's decentralized nature and its proven ability to hold value over time. Thiel asserted that Bitcoin could be a game-changer for the petrodollar system, a cornerstone of the U.S. economy. He urged policymakers to recognize Bitcoin's potential and create a regulatory framework that supports innovation rather than stifles it. The growing influence of Bitcoin advocates, evidenced by the high-profile attendance at the 2024 Bitcoin conference, suggests a shift in political attitudes towards cryptocurrencies. With this tailwind, Fred predicts a bullish trend for Bitcoin in the coming months. As we bring you more clips from the interview, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel to help us reach more viewers. Don't forget to turn on post notifications to stay updated with our latest content. Share your thoughts and observations in the comments section below. Thank you and enjoy the video.
If Russia, China, India, Saudi Arabia, and the countries that want to trade commodities, because remember, the petrodollar deal is dead. Those commodities no longer have to be priced in dollars. If they want to start moving to holding their reserve assets in Bitcoin, there's nothing the US can do to stop them transacting. There's nothing the US can do to confiscate it unless it's held in a US financial institution. And so the US, to project power in the Bitcoin network, in the Bitcoin world, needs to own Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of the top 8 assets in the world, right? Look at art. I'll give you an example. Talk to an economist. What intrinsic value does owning a Picasso have? It only has value because people attribute value to it and think it's valuable. But his art could go out of favor and it would have no value. It's a piece of canvas with some ink on it. So I think it's very important for people to realize that Bitcoin is not a fly-by-night thing. It's held by millions of people. Its market cap is in the trillions of dollars. The Bitcoin ETFs are proof. It's the fastest and most successful ETF launch ever. Look at the amount of flows that go into these things. You have pension funds like the State of Wisconsin Investment Board that hold hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin and Bitcoin investments. Why would these types of asset managers be interested in holding Bitcoin? It's because it generates a great yield. Show me any asset that has performed this well over the past 10 years. None. I don't think it's necessarily going to be the currency of exchange, but it will definitely be a reserve asset where people store their money. I don't think the Saudis want to hold a bunch of rubles, renminbi, and rupees, right? There's a reason they hold dollars. It's because rule of law, it's stable, and it's safe. Well, the problem is they've been funding the US deficit. And at over $35 trillion, servicing that deficit, that debt rather, has now gotten to the point where it's larger than a lot of entitlement spending. And if the US were to hold 2 million Bitcoin, 10% of the Bitcoin, of all the Bitcoin in the world, and Bitcoin were to climb into the millions of dollars, you now have trillions of dollars in your reserve that you could use to pay off parts of the deficit or even all the deficit. There isn't another way for the US to deal with the deficit other than allowing inflation to run rampant and letting the dollar become devalued. We think we're at the beginning of an inflection point in Bitcoin from an adoption perspective. The Bitcoin ETFs were the beginning of the potential for institutionalization of Bitcoin as an investment asset. It made it easy for any asset manager to hold Bitcoin just like they could hold the stock in any company. And as soon as the wirehouses finalize compliance, because to this date, the vast majority of people who've invested in these ETFs are retail investors. As soon as the wirehouses finish compliance and various pension funds finish their compliance, you're going to see a large volume of retirement assets go into Bitcoin denominated assets, whether it's ETFs, whether it's equities of Bitcoin companies like ours or MicroStrategy. There are lots of ways to get exposure to it. You know, there's 40 plus trillion dollars of pension assets, and 1 or 2% of those going into Bitcoin will have a huge impact. Remember, it is a finite asset. It's not like buying stock in IBM or Tesla who can just issue more stock. It's not like gold where you can just mine more gold.
I think one of the concerns around the Bitcoin ETFs is, let's suppose it grows even bigger beyond what it's already been achieved, or what has already been achieved. By the way, it's been like the most successful ETF launch in history by volume of transactions. But the question is, suppose it gets bigger, wouldn't Bitcoins be taken out of circulation to be used in these ETFs and derivative products, thereby making it less likely to be used as a medium of exchange?
I don't think you have to look at Bitcoin from multiple angles. One is as an investment asset, right? Picassos are not a medium of exchange. They're something people have invested in, right? And there are only so many Picassos available on the market today, right? If you want to buy Banksy, you have to find somebody willing to sell a Banksy, unless he paints one for you. So it's the same thing with Bitcoin. If the ETFs end up soaking up a large percentage of Bitcoin, and other sovereign nations start soaking up a large volume of Bitcoin, yeah, there won't be a lot available. But what will that do to the price of Bitcoin? It will go through the roof. Because again, there are only 21 million Bitcoin. And of that 21 million, 19.8 are arguably already in circulation.
What's the sentiment on the price right now?
The sentiment is very bullish. You know, you have a lot of people feeling this is like the early stages of 2021. But the difference is you now have a regulated financial instrument that anybody can acquire to hold Bitcoin that doesn't require you to open a wallet. It doesn't require you to hold keys. It doesn't require you to actually hold it or transfer it. You call your broker, you buy shares in an ETF, and you're done. It's that simple. The Biden administration ceded financial policy to Senator Warren and her group of people who felt that attacking crypto because of the FTX issues was something that would cost the Democrats nothing and allow them to really control an industry and squash an industry, just like they tried to do by controlling banking for the cannabis industry or for other industries. They went after the on-ramps and off-ramps to crypto. They went after the companies that were involved in crypto. The SEC went out and filed lawsuits. They tried to do everything they could to kill it over the past 3 years. Right? Now you have a different tenor in their tone.
Is it because popular sentiment towards Bitcoins and cryptos have been shifting as well?
50 million voters have a perspective on Bitcoin that's positive. That is a large voting bloc. There are 6 states that determine the election in this country. You got to do what you can to get voters, and it is an issue.
Trump also said on the campaign trail that he wants all Bitcoin mining to be done in the U.S. How do you interpret that statement?
Well, it's of strategic importance because the Bitcoin mining is transaction processing, essentially. And if transactions are processed outside of the U.S., then the U.S. has no way to control what transactions are being processed. So Trump would ideally love to see the majority of Bitcoin mining done in the U.S. because that way the majority of Bitcoin transactions would, in theory, be able to fall under some form of US regulation. If other countries have the majority of Bitcoin mining, then there's no way for the US to control Bitcoin, period. I think the challenge for Ethereum is, there was some pent-up demand with expectations around the Ethereum ETFs launching, which have now officially launched. It's too early to tell how successful that launch will be. But the fact of the matter is that when you look at an asset of institutional quality, Ethereum doesn't fill that bill. And so you don't see countries talking about building a reserve in Ethereum, because Ethereum operates under totally different systems. There are entities that control Ethereum. That's not the case in the world of Bitcoin. Nobody controls Bitcoin. Right? There isn't an entity, there isn't a foundation that decides what goes into Bitcoin code, what doesn't go into Bitcoin code. It's all of the miners and all the node operators. Ethereum is essentially controlled by the foundation and what Vitalik Buterin wants to do. And it's also controlled by the stake operators, the stakers. And there's a huge concentration of that today.
That concludes our video for today. We've heard from Fred Thiel on Bitcoin, Bitcoin mining, and the cryptocurrency's promising trajectory as institutional and political interest grows. Did you find this information valuable? Please share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.